I am an angel investor. I founded Afropreneur Tech Investments about 10 years ago, which does very early angel investments in tech and aligned industries, mostly in Africa, but also in the US. And I am also a partner at Lofty Inc. Capital Management, which does early stage funding for tech-enabled companies in West Africa. So I want to focus on a sector that people usually neglect. We speak about entrepreneurs, we speak about the health sectors. People forget about investors themselves, especially angel investors. So you've seen over the past 4 or 5 years, with the growth in investment on the continent, there's been a new wave of angel investors, individuals who very early on put their personal money in some of these investments, which then attract later on funding. And for several of these people, this is the first time they are witnessing a downturn. And so they themselves are confused. What do they do? How do they react? Do they stop investing? What happens to their previous investments? And so the focus of my next few minutes is targeted mostly at these people. So the first thing is looking at it now. What did you do as an angel investor who has a portfolio of 1, 5, 7 companies? And then the first thing is focus on the health and safety of every member of your community. So your founders that you have invested in, their teams, and that's the first call. Yourself, focus on your own mental health. Money goes when it comes, but also help your founders focus on their own health and the health and safety of their portfolio company employees and their families and friends. I think that's the first part. Because if they survive, then there's a probability of the company surviving. If people lose their health or their safety, then you don't even have a company to go back to. So that's the first part. Realizing that your entrepreneurs are going to face a difficult time over the next couple of months. There's going to be a liquidity crisis for lots of them. Our sales cycles are going to get pushed out. They're going to lose customers. Even for those of them that keep on doing well, they're going to have to let some of their highly valued colleagues go in order to preserve the business. So in addition to you focusing about and thinking about your own capital in them, I think we have to realize that you're going to be called on to help them with also advice, right? For those of them that companies that die, providing empathy and support to them, or for those who survive, also being able to help advise as they burn through cash. I think that's one. The second thing is, by the nature of early stage investment itself, most of our companies ultimately fail. But what this crisis will do is it will accelerate some of those failures. And even for those that survive, it will provide them with a tough problem, because I've seen a lot of grocery companies that are doing well, but they can't even handle the demand because they've not been built to be able to handle this sudden huge demand. So even for those who are doing well, there's going to be a very strong headwind where they're going to need support as the environment changes. And also, you as an angel investor, you'll be forced to make personal and difficult choices. Being called upon to act decisively to provide more capital for companies that survive or continue to do well. So you have to be able to detach emotion from it and be able to analyze and say, which of these companies need further support, further funding I have, and they would help them to survive, and which ones are those where increased funding at this point in time is not going to make a difference, and better make them die. So emotions and they are pouring in good money after bad money. Some of the companies are already weak, fundamentals are already weak, and sometimes it's just better for them to die. And in all of this, however, I think it's very important that we continue to treat our entrepreneurs, even the ones that fail, with respect that they deserve. Right? They have taken great risk, personal sacrifices to build those companies. Unfortunately, many of them are not going to make it to this. But the companies are the good news. The companies that make through this are probably going to be stronger as they make it through. And even looking through our past experiences, while it's never probably been this bad, but look at some of our strongest companies that we invested in. They were doing difficult times. So we did Ebola in 2014 during the height of the Ebola crisis. Sorry, Ebola. We did Andela, right? Investment in Andela, the height of the Ebola crisis. And Flutter, we invested in them during the Nigerian recession. And those are some of the companies that have brought us very huge returns, right? So it means if you look long about this, I think that potential for those companies that survive to actually do very well. Also on the good side, I think people are going to probably come in with more realistic and modest valuations. So all the valuations we've seen in the past 1-2 years of people without doing a proof of $40 million valuation at starting, I think that's going to change. You probably have less competition for talents, and then the more opportunities that continue to show up. So I think also investors, they call for us to be more cautious about what you examine the fundamentals. Someone spoke around business models earlier and the ability to scale. I think also ensure that you as an investor have a diversified portfolio. Now, I've seen this in our portfolio, the companies are probably going to die because they're struggling. But the companies in the online education space and also in the health space that we have seen do very well in the past 2 to 3 weeks. And that's one of the beauties of having a diversified portfolio as an investor. And so to round up, the question is now, okay, so that's what you do right now. Corona, what do we think would happen? One, we don't know when it's going to end. And I think it's good to plan for the long haul, but also realize that you need to be ready for new opportunities that will spring out of this. Which of your entrepreneurs have shown an adaptation to be able to react and remobilize the current assets they have to solve new problems, right? Local supply chains. So I was reading BBC yesterday and seeing how Tunisia, where a small company in Tunisia is producing about 500,000 face masks daily. That is huge. And a lot of companies realize you can no longer just depend on China for this. For instance, about 60% of the world's face masks are made in Malaysia. Now, Malaysia lockdown, it's affecting everywhere else. So countries like Nigeria, like other African countries, are going to start thinking of investing in local supply chains, local manufacturing, right? And things were not so sexy or fancy before, now suddenly become a need to have. So I think that's a good thing. And so as we go ahead, start looking for those opportunities that will come out of this crisis. And lastly, I would say, like a quote I posted on Facebook today, we go back to normal. In the rush to normal, it is important to use this time, consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. So I think a crisis like this allows you to reevaluate your choices, evaluate your decision matrix, and be able to actually respond to this. And yeah, so I think that's where I will stop. And I did write an article about a couple of days ago, which gone viral on this, but 10 steps for you to survive in these Corona times. And I think the organizers can share that afterwards with this. Thank you.